Welcome to another episode of Business by the Numbers. I'm your host, Hunt Demarest, CPA with Parmelis and Associates. So this week we have a very exciting guest. I sat down probably a couple weeks ago at Vision with Mike DelaCruz of Overdryve Marketing. Mike is an awesome guy. I've known him over the years, so it was awesome to sit down and chat about all things marketing, the future, where AI is leading this. Really learned a lot from it, and I know you will as too. So tune in, listen to one of our new sponsors, Overdryve Marketing, and Mike talk everything that you've ever wondered about marketing for your shop. Shop owners, are you struggling to find and retain top-tier talent for your automotive shop? Introducing Promotive, on the web at GoPromotive.com. With over 40 years of combined industry and recruiting experience, we're the ultimate staffing solution. We go beyond traditional agencies. Our team provides dedicated recruiters and account managers advising on processes, compensation, and benefits. We focus on placing technicians and service advisors with shops that offer the best culture, training, and long-term growth opportunities. Trust our experience to match the right talent to your shop. We carefully select shops that value employee excellence and provide an environment for success. Our dedicated team leads the entire process, leveraging our industry knowledge and expertise. Partner with Promotive and experience their advantage to help you build a high-performing team that drives your shop's growth. Visit GoPromotive.com today and let us help find and keep the best talent in the industry. Before we get into that, I just want to stop and say thank you to you and the rest of the dedicated listeners. Remember, if you want to hear your question answered on here, just have a question for me or an idea for a future episode, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. Don't forget my new book, Beyond the Base, a financial playbook for auto repair shop owners, is available now on Amazon for paperback and Kindle. Want to talk to us about accounting and tax services Parmelis could offer your shop? Shoot us an email at info@parmelis.com. Super excited to have you on. Super excited to have you as a new sponsor. Just want to learn a little bit more about your business, your background, and maybe some trends and stuff for the future. First and foremost, like we were just talking before we started, you and I have somewhat known each other. You're kind of a legend in the industry. You've been around, but never officially got to sit down. So just wanted to welcome you on and tell a little bit about yourself.
It's great to be here, Hunt, and thank you so much for the opportunity to sponsor and the invitation to sit down and talk with you. Because, as you mentioned, we have known the names for many years, obviously in a positive way. And then when the opportunity came up, I said, "Heck yes, let's sponsor this." So it's great to be here. As far as myself, so I consider myself an industry guy. I came in 2011 working for DemandForce. I don't know if you recall the CRM company, but that was kind of my entryway into this wonderful industry of the automotive aftermarket. And what's interesting is DemandForce at the time had 5 verticals. They had like spa, health and beauty, and dental and veterinarian. And then they said, "Mike DelaCruz, you're going to go to the automotive vertical." And at the time, I didn't know anything about automotive. So I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot to learn. So immediately it was something that I embraced pretty quickly. Spent some time at Kukui shortly after DemandForce had gotten acquired, and then had a lot of fun, really great days there. It's a great company, and then kind of shifted gears, got into coaching, and then most recently, before I started my company, I was working for Velo, kind of on the shop management side. And then ultimately in 2023, I decided to throw a Hail Mary, and I say that because as entrepreneurs, we don't really know, we have a passion for it, but we don't really know, we can't predict the future. So ultimately, I wanted to just kind of, not necessarily work for myself. I knew I wanted to stay in the industry, but I wanted to really enjoy what I was doing. So through this Hail Mary, and originally, and this is such a great story that a lot of people appreciate, the intent was to manage marketing for maybe 2 or 3 shops. And obviously with 15 years in the space, I have a pretty significant network. So I knew pretty quickly I'd be able to get like 2 or 3 shops and make a couple bucks a month, and then just kind of have fun working for myself. And then what I quickly realized, very quickly, is that there's such a need for what we're doing. Marketing management, shop owners know that they need to do some form of advertising or some form of marketing to get customers back. But I think equally important is they probably just either don't want to manage it themselves, or don't care to learn it. They don't have the budgets to hire kind of that traditional in-house marketing director, because that can get pretty expensive. By default, what they do is they typically look for outside agencies like Overdryve.
Awesome. That's exactly what I was kind of looking for. So I guess a unique perspective of working in, different aspects of this industry. Is this where you kind of looked at this and said, hey, my passion is really marketing and this is how I want to help people? Because obviously with coaching, you're helping them from multiple different verticals, hey, the profitability side, the mental side, the organizational side. What made you be like, hey, you know what, I think that the part of this that I can really help them the most is the marketing piece?
Yeah, that's a great question, Hunt. Between Velo and kind of launching this company, I had to do a lot of self-reflection. Yeah. And for me, I don't have a major ego. For me, I'm the type of guy that if I make a mistake, I'm going to take a step back, I'm going to reassess, and then figure out, okay, take ownership. Okay, I messed this up, but what do I need to do to fix it? And I take those steps to fix it. So I did a lot of self-reflection at the time, and what I realized is my passion is this industry. I love this industry. My passion is marketing. Not only my passion, but my expertise. Yeah. So the two sort of kind of collaborated and fit together, and I said, well, let me just start to manage marketing for a couple of shops originally, and then here we have evolved to 11 now team members, and in less than 3 years. So we're pretty proud of our progress.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels too, and I think a lot of shop owners would probably resonate with this. I mean, how many shop owners do you think started their shop in the same way? I mean, the classic idea of hey, I'm pretty good with this. This is my passion. Hey, I can make some money on it, and then before they know it, they're like, holy crap, I got 8 bays, and trying to figure it all out. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, you see that. That's a common story. And typically they either start off as a technician or somewhere inside of the shop. Yeah. And then ultimately, I mean, that's the most common in my experience, is ultimately they start there and then they just kind of start with one location. And then pretty quickly, many of them become these MSOs and very high level operators. Yeah. But I think that, as a business owner, it's pretty common to not fully know what you're getting into and just kind of go through this journey, and then kind of learn along the way, and sure that you're going to fall on your face, and but ultimately you either pick yourself up and dust yourself off and move forward, or you decide that that's not the path. But here we are over 3 years later of starting this journey, and I'm literally still having fun to this day. It is fun, a lot of fun.
So you, just like we do, work with clients nationwide on this. I hear a lot of people say, hey, advertising is advertising. It doesn't matter where you are and what you're doing. And I think you would agree with me that probably couldn't be more wrong when you work with shops. When you see advertising of what works and what doesn't across the country, is this more of what someone's looking for as customer? Is it more location specific? Is it more, Euro diesel specific? How do you kind of see the intricacies of hey, this is one that just universally works for everyone, and then we have some pockets that work for different, specialties or different markets?
All of the above.
Okay. Every month, auto repair shops can lose over $20,000 in uncredited parts, cores, and lost profits. WickedFile's AI-powered software is a game changer. It helped one shop owner recover over $10,000 in missed credits, and others have recovered tens of thousands more. WickedFile puts cash back into your business and hours back into your day. Stop leaving money on the table. Visit WickedFile.com to learn more and get started today.
It's interesting. There's no one size fits all with this game, not at all. So the very first step, we have these 4 pillars internally at Overdryve, where it's identify, plan, manage, perform. The very first step is identify, and when I say that, not only the root cause, but it goes to area where they're at, their specialty, so many different things. So I always use the term avatar, which we do typically hear that in the industry. The very first step, when the shop says, hey, I need cars. For me, immediately, when they say I need cars, I have a million question marks in my mind, because I want to know not only what they're doing for marketing, I want to know who's answering their phones. Because a big form of marketing is the sales component, and that's often what we lose sight of in the industry is, marketing is responsible for driving quality leads to the shop and filling the calendar up with appointment.
Outputs, right?
But we're not picking up the phone, right? We've got to.
You're not cussing at them when they call to try and drop off the car. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So the two really go hand in hand, and that's what I really try to articulate. So the first step is identify. So I always ask prospective clients, well, if you could kind of craft this avatar, if you will, where it's your ideal customer, what would that look like? And most of the time they know, between 35 and 58, and they, are business owners, or they're soccer moms or dads or whatever. So typically they know. So now I have a sense of, okay, this is their ideal type of customer. And then I get into their specialties. Are they Euro? Are they Asian import? Are they domestic? Are they diesel? Do they do all makes, all models?
Yeah.
What's really their bread and butter? And then what I typically look at is demo reports, so demographic reports. So depending on the area and the specialty, so for example, if it's a major metropolitan area, I don't have to go with this massive radius because their TAM, or their total addressable market, is pretty significant. But if it's rural, then I'm probably going to go out 15 to 20 miles to really identify this avatar, try to capture this avatar, if you will. So I start to look at routes, these carrier routes. Zip codes all have like kind of USPS, how they deliver mail. They have the zip codes, and then they have these carrier routes within the zip code. Well, what's interesting between USPS, DMV, you could tell a lot. How many vehicles they have at their house, their median household income. So there's a lot of work, like pre-work, that goes into it before we build a strategy.
Attacking stuff. It's just like, what do you guys want? What is my market? Let me assess all this.
Correct.
Before we just are like, let's put the credit card in and start dumping ads at people.
Exactly. Yeah. You never want to be in a position with sort of spray and pray. Yeah. And then lastly, what we typically, you could tell a lot with data, as you know. So we look at the shop management system or any type of CRM that they're using, and we pull historical data. I like to look at year over year, because year over year will measure their seasonality. This same time, last year, what were we doing? Are we up? Are we down? Are we flat? And then I look at what I call trending data over 6 months. So over the 6 months, are we going down? Are we going up? Are we flat? So that's going to really tell me a story. And then further, is the root cause, once you start to extract all this data and you have an idea, okay, the type of customer, and then you get access to all their reporting, is it a retention issue or is it a new customer acquisition issue, right? Because I can immediately tell where a problem is just by looking at their data before I go there. Because I visit every single one of our clients.
You can see return customers, you know what the industry standards are, and you know where the difference is. And it's like, hey, you don't have cars, but you got cars coming in and they leave and they never come back.
Exactly, exactly. Which is, I'm here because I'm teaching a retention marketing class.
And
that's actually my favorite topic, is retention marketing. Because it's often something we lose sight of.
Same with employees.
We're so focused on moving forward in this forward direction, trying to get new customers, but what about the ones that we haven't seen in 10, 11, 12 months? How are we going to get them back?
The one that you've already vetted, the ones that already know your system, the one that you have the history on, right? Recommended work. But you see that a lot on the employee side too, right?
Correct.
Everyone's so dedicated. Oh, I need another guy, right? You're overlooking your team and you end up losing 2 of your existing ones.
Exactly.
Super cool. I love the idea on avatar, and I think that you skimmed over that a little bit, but talk to me about that, because I think that is the key to a lot of people's advertising. Is if you do the shotgun approach, really what you're doing is you're saying, I don't know what I want to go after or where that person is. So talk a little bit about, before someone needs to advertise, they need to figure out, all right, what does that customer actually look like?
So there are, on occasion, they will say, well, I have no idea, right? So what I typically like to do is I like to probe a little bit, ask them questions. Okay, well, I've already captured census data. I know what's in front of us. Census data is really critical because depending on what type of marketing initiative you do, like for example, if they're 90+% veterans, we would want to participate in Veterans Day parades and different things like that. So I ask them those questions, but most of the time they're from that area. So I'm like, what type of area this is, and then I combine what they say with the census data and the demographic reports to be able to basically build an avatar directly and then talk them through it. Does this seem like an ideal customer for you? And most of the times they're like spot on.
How much of this, or I guess probably a little bit of an awkward conversation, when you have a car count issue and you have to kind of play the blame game, right? So how do you bridge the gap, or how do you open a conversation to someone because a lot of times it's not the owner on the counter, right? But hey, calls are up, visits are up. Yeah, your closes are way down because of your something going on internally. Do you see that a lot? Is that hard to talk to these guys about, or what?
Not hard at all.
No.
Yeah. I mean, look, they pay me for a service, right? And it's my responsibility to them to be candid, to be honest, and to be transparent. So, but I won't prematurely say, hey, it's a counter, just by looking at that kind of that on the surface, hey, your retention numbers are low. Every client we have, we do an on-site visit and I get to meet them. And what's interesting, and I take this back to my days at Kukui, where we launched a marketing campaign called 1,000 Shop Visits. We bought this Mercedes Sprinter van, we wrapped it, you remember that, right? And I took before, and everybody knows Jimmy Lee from doing it, who did a fantastic job on the road and kind of creating this buzz. But before Jimmy Lee, it was Todd Westerler and myself, right? We're the ones who kind of started that initiative.
You walked so he could run, right?
Right,
we'll
exactly.
Clip that out.
exactly. But every shop we'd go to, I mean, I was an observer, right? I look at what type of neighborhood that was in. Was there ample parking? When I'd walk in, was I greeted? But to answer your question, I'd sit down and I would observe, and I would listen to how the advisors would pick up the phone and how the technicians would come in and talk to the advisors. I would watch customers walk in, and I'm like, this person wasn't greeted, right? So I was able to take away so many nuggets from that experience. So I think I owe it to clients to say, like, listen, and once I've compiled the data and I feel good about this observation and my decision is, hey, here's my observation. You could do X, Y, or Z, but if it's a true car count issue, here's what the problem is. And I won't ever be in a position where I tell somebody to fire somebody. That's not my job. No. But what I will say is this is a problem. Thankfully, you could bounce back, but they have to be bought into the mission. Mission is, okay, not just words on paper. What am I trying to accomplish as this business? Do your team members understand your mission, and are they on board? Because if they're not on board, if they don't know the mission, you're going to get pushback every single time.
Yeah, and the tricky part is a lot of these is it's probably like the pressure's coming from the counter of, we don't have any cars, boss, you got to get them in, right? The guys in the shop are yelling at them. And so I think a lot of those conversations, when you go back and say, right, like, we're measuring outputs on inputs, but there's a lot of variables here. Guys, like, we're not saying the right things. We're not, greeting people well. I think that most shop owners that we work with, the team wants to hear that. And like you said, if they don't want to hear that, then they're probably not the right player there.
That's right.
Very cool.
Yeah, candid and transparency and honesty are really key things. You cannot sugarcoat, you cannot shy away, because you're doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility to our clients to, and this is from the very beginning. We go over an onboarding session, which is typically an hour and 10 to hour and 30. But within that, we not only ask marketing related questions, but we ask operational stuff. I want to know about each advisor in there, what their backgrounds are. Are there any challenges that you're having with them? Because, admittedly, we could come in and we could help, but they have to want to accept help, right? If they're just completely shut down, and I've been in situations like that where they just are not receptive, I'm a third party, right? Like and I don't come in like trying to make orders. I come in with the intent to help my client, who I love dearly, help them hit the goals that we've already laid out from the beginning.
Absolutely. So no offense to Velo or any other private equity out there, right? But like what you're talking about, a lot of what you're marketing to their customers, right? Trust, family, community and stuff like that. Have you shifted your marketing or seen other people shifted their marketing to highlight that they are not private equity, as we've seen so many other private equity shops get bought up? I've seen it in a couple areas now, but I imagine it'll be something that we should probably see more in the future.
Yeah, we've noticed this shift kind of post-COVID, right? Because again, 15 years ago, a lot of it was, Joe, I'm the owner, and a lot of it was the generational stuff, right? And you're seeing kind of this shift into private equity. And my personal opinion is it's great as long as you operate morally and ethically. That's my biggest thing. And yes, we all want to be profitable, but let's do it in an ethical way. Let's do the right thing. So I think it's a positive thing. I think that there's area, of course I can't speak for every company out there, but I think it's a positive shift as long as we stick to these fundamental principles of serving people, being kind of pro-consumer, operating with trust, doing the right thing, and approaching it with complete faith in your ethics, and just we all want to sleep at night. So as long as you're doing the right thing, 100%. But I am seeing that shift as well.
You're working on growing a more profitable shop. That's critical. But the profit doesn't automatically give you the freedom or reduce your stress. That's exactly what the 24-video blueprint course by Maverick shop owners addresses. Customers, sales, profit, people, systems, and freedom. How to build profit and freedom into the same business. Get free access for our listeners only at maverickshopowners.com/blueprint.
So talking about shift, AI and stuff like this, right? I kind of joke because a lot of people in this industry are nervous of AI, and I kind of look at my own industry and say, guys, AI is very close to replacing me doing taxes. It's not very close to doing a head gasket, right? So I think the same can be said in the marketing and advertising world, right? Like, who would have thought about trying to advertise on ChatGPT 5 years ago? because we didn't even know it existed. So talk to a little bit about that, of like, you started in 2023, right when this was coming out. Like, where do you see advertising in AI? Where do you see it now? Like a year, 5 years, 10 years? Is that going to take over everything, or is it just going to be a part of the mix?
This is one of my favorite topics, and I'll just add a little context. So our offices at Overdryve are in Sunnyvale, California, which is in the thick of Silicon Valley. We're 15 minutes of Palo Alto, 15 minutes of San Jose. But our offices are in a location called Plug and Play. They're a global company, but their headquarters are in Sunnyvale. So we work, basically with 200 plus startups. So OpenAI actually had their first office there when it was just Sam Altman. Before my time there, right?
That's the fine print.
But yeah, exactly. You see his little plaque up there. It's pretty cool.
They put it up there? Yeah.
It's really inspiring, right? So I was playing around with this many years, I think in 2020, early 2023, I was playing with ChatGPT and stuff. My opinion, AI will never replace that human component. There's always going to be a human component around it. So for example, AI can't sit here and have this interview, right? But there are things, and this is speaking from somebody that has 9 certifications in AI and marketing through HubSpot and just other resources. But nevertheless, but let's utilize AI to its fullest potential. And as an industry, particularly as a service provider, we're not using it to its fullest potential. We're using it, but not its fullest potential. So for example, you tell, one of my biggest pain points as an example is service reminders. Why, if every customer has different driving habits, every single person, you might see Jane 1 time a year, you might see Joe 5 times a year who has 3 cars.
And you probably know that with the data if you're looking at it.
Exactly. But why should Jane and Joe get the same communication when they're due for service? Why do we have to say, okay, 6 months, 9 months, 10 months, and that's it? So with AI, and that's where AI can be useful in our industry. AI would actually come in the database, the shop management system, and say, Jane customer, we only see her 1 time a year. These are the types of campaigns Jane customer responds to where she comes in and spends money. These are the ones that she ignores. Open rates with Jane customer are significant when we send her this, right? For me, that's so powerful, and it is highly underutilized, which is why we've built Overdryve.OS. So the very brief backstory is we've always operated as fractional CMOs, right? So essentially replacing that traditional in-house marketing director. But about 6 months ago, what we've done is we've not necessarily fully shifted because there's such a significant need with managed marketing today, but we've embraced this AI train that everybody's jumping on. So for example, AI generated campaigns is what Overdryve.OS does. Fully live, we integrate, I don't know if I can say this, but Tekmetric, we integrate with Tekmetric, very proud integration partner with Tekmetric. And basically what we do is we look into the database, we connect into all of their lead sources, so Google Analytics, all of that, and then AI flags it if we're pacing downward. And then it sends notification to the client saying, Joe, last week we had 48 calls from Google Ads, this week we're only at 10, you can do X, Y, and Z to recover. And remember,
quickly, real time, instead of being like, wait, why did my calls drop off from Google for the last 3 months? You're getting real time data so that, you might have had a blip, but you got a blip, not a massive downswing.
Exactly, and more importantly, it's not only here's the problem, but here's the solution. And it's not just, let's throw this against the wall, hope it sticks. If we've all used Gemini or ChatGPT or Grok, whatever AI platform we use, if we've all used it, it's all very similar. They know your behaviors. They know who your spouse is. They know where you work.
We're not that complicated.
Right, exactly, right? So it's very similar to that. They'll take your specialty, they take your ideal customer, they look at seasonality, and they say, well, we're pacing down, here's what you can do. They look at search within the area, because if search is down on brake repair, nobody's searching in the area, you could create a $10,000 ads budget. Google's gonna want to spend every penny of that. So you're gonna get these, crappy leads coming through, right? So it is a true AI model that not only presents the problem or the potential problem before it happens, but also tells you what you need to do to bounce back. And like I said, fully functional, very proud. We've been piloting it for 2 months. Pretty significant investment, not only monetarily, but also our effort. But we believe that this is the future, which is your question. Yes, this is a future, but no, it will never kind of replace that human. There's always going to be a QC component behind AI, my own opinion.
So do you see in the future, from what you were saying here, that I think in the future when someone sends out, let's say a mail campaign, it's not going to be mail, it's going to be a different format. But right now you send out the same mailer, the same frequency to every single customer because you don't know what works. If AI gets good enough and you have that feedback loop, when you do a campaign, every single customer will get an ad tailored towards them that resonates with them.
Correct.
Right? It'll be personalized to them. You know who they are. You know what they drive. You're not going to tell someone with a Toyota that you got a great package on, whatever, Audi brakes or something like that. This is something that you could do right now, right? And, during COVID, when it got slow, what were people doing? Customize, direct, pick up the phone, talk to the people about declined service. One of the best ways to get work in the door, impossible to scale, right? You don't have a call center. And so when you talked about being able to mine the database and using AI to do this stuff, we could have done this stuff in the past, but the speed at which you could do it,
Correct.
the lag time, would never be viable. So
Correct.
I never thought about it that way of not only of the frequency, but hey, this is working for other people, but why am I going to send this same reminder to Miss Smith who never opens it? Right. She likes it when we, greet her with good morning or whatever.
Exactly.
That's
and on the topic
cool.
of mailers, like you mentioned, how granular can we get, right? When I talk about zip codes and carrier routes, what is a carrier route that typically comes in and spends money at my shop? Yeah. Which are the ones that we ignore? So I want to tell AI to sort of be this methodical, kind of build a methodical strategy around the right type of customers that come in and not only spend money at your shop, but those LTV, those lifetime value customers where, they're generational at times, where little Billy was walking around in diapers and then all of a sudden little Billy has his license in a car and you're servicing his vehicle, right? That's the customers you want. Credit card, car keys, don't worry, just call me when it's ready. Yeah. Those are the customers that we want.
And usually net refers as well too. You get them, you get the family. The lifetime value is something that I don't think a lot of people understand. If they did, you would never get one complaint against or about your services, right? If people really understood what that true A customer, the one they all know that they have, right? And you take them for granted, they've been there for 15 years. How much is that person worth, right? It might be crazy to go out and say, hey, give me $2,000 to get this person to call your shop. But that customer could be worth $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in the life of it. How do you kind of shift people's mindset of hey, this isn't really an expense if working correctly, or do you just have to show them the proof?
Well, it's funny you say that, Hunt, because through my observation of sitting in, to date, probably over 2,000 shops around the country and in Canada, there's been many times where I'm talking to an advisor and they've said, it's only a $79 oil change. Price shopper, whatever, right? What I try to do is tell them, or teach them, don't look at this like a $79 oil change. If we connected all of these dots, if we did all of the right things, and we earn their relationship so that you are the only choice, they're not going to your competitors, they're not even shopping around. If we did this, that's tens of thousands of dollars in revenue. Yeah. And then in addition to that, which I believe is equally important, is that intrinsic reward. I call them, and it's funny because I actually mentioned this to Carm not long ago, and he always reminds me how you called it the NASA shop, right? The shops that just sort of have all the pieces in place, that do everything right, they're the ones who, and I watch them, the customers come in and they know them. And they're like, oh yeah, so-and-so softball game or whatever. It's a true community business. But if you've done that, not only are we adding tens of thousands of dollars to our revenue by using this LTV model, this lifetime value model, but how does it make you feel when somebody comes in and knows you and acknowledges you and you're part of a family, right? It's the intrinsic reward as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think a lot of people miss that, right? Hey, this is your business. You can create, your own dream, your own nightmare. And a lot of people look at this of hey, is it profit or having fun? We've all seen these shops, and I think if you're struggling, it's probably really hard to see that of hey, I can make money and have fun. But we've all seen it, right? If you figure out what you're good at, you treat customers right, especially in 2026. I do not think that most customers are price shoppers if they're the true right customer for you, right? Just got to find them.
There's a piece I have on my class later on today about that, where I love dealing with price shoppers. Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with my background in sales, having taken Sandler twice, PSS, the professional selling skills. You could tell a lot by asking questions. And I think that that's where we fail a lot on the counter. We're very transactional. We're like, well, we don't quote prices over the phone. And it's almost confrontational. Yeah. But empathy, man, I'm sorry you're in that position. To tell me a little bit more about that. Yeah. that can really, like, I listen to dozens and dozens of calls. That you almost feel like, even when you're just listening to calls, you almost feel a sense of tension.
You can hear the guard just come down.
The guard comes down, you know? So at any rate, but yeah, I love price shoppers.
No, absolutely. And I think, and I get this a lot in my own business, right? Because people, just like auto repair, people are extremely unfamiliar with taxes and financials to a certain extent. So when they call up and they say, well, hey, you're more expensive than this guy, they might not have any clue what a tie rod is, so that's their only comparison. So I love your idea of like, hey, if you're listening to these calls, you probably know the answers right there, because did they actually listen, or they immediately start saying, oh, we can't do this, this is why we do it, this is what our warranty is. It's like, slow down, right? Just listen.
Feature function dump.
Yeah, these are human beings. And a lot of it, I think people get too lost, right? People call me up and say, hey, what are other shops doing? Like, what do customers want? And I'm like, guys, you are a customer in every other business in your life other than the one that you work at, right? So how hard is it sometimes for people to put themselves in their own shoes? And like, you're overthinking this, right? People want to do business with people that they like. I think I know what you're going to say on this, and there's probably some break-even point, but this is getting way too complicated for the average shop owner is what I'm hearing, right? And so I think that is, or you can say if you agree with me, to get to a certain point, this is beyond the DIY person, or is there still an area where you can do this yourself and run your own Google ad campaigns and direct mail?
I think it's, my opinion is it's very difficult for a shop owner to do it on themselves. They might have an area of free time and they're like, cool, I can manage this on my own. But I think the important thing with marketing is not only launching a campaign, but also seeing it through. And it's not only a single campaign, it's multiple campaigns. It's preparing for your seasonality, tax time, winter time, back to school. When does your car count typically fall? If you look at it, say 5 periods in a year. And then not only that, prepare for those unexpected reductions in car counts and lead counts. You mentioned it yourself, you're in the Maryland area. They had Doge, they had all that stuff, and then it created a lot of panic. And then all of a sudden, my clients in the Baltimore, DC area, they're like, they're making everybody go to work and all these different things, like into the office and stuff. It's like, what? Like, so we had to pivot, and there is gonna be times you have to pivot. So you have to be prepared for that. I always compare it to that old school pie analogy. If you took your day, and if you chopped it up into slices of the pie, whether it's managing team members, overseeing operation, meeting payroll deadlines, implementing the latest tools, the technology, getting your team trained, there's always going to be a form of marketing. The branding that you're wearing right there, that's marketing, right? There's always, whether it's 2% or 25% a day. So our goal is to take that slice out of their daily piece of the pie or their daily workload and to manage their time. It is easy for them to launch a campaign, but I think that they can't be in a position where, I don't know if you remember Malin, RIP Malin, but he used to call it panic marketing, where all of a sudden you drop and then now we got to do something. That is not an effective way to manage marketing.
I think a lot of shop owners are thinking to themselves, I thought that's marketing, right? You turn it off and then you're like, we're fine, we have more cars than we know what to do with. And then what, you have a car count and they immediately turn it back on and then are surprised that the cars don't show up the following week. So I love that idea, and like what I really need to hammer home on the financial side of like what you're talking about is the exact reason of hiring a professional. It's the speed at which this happens. Because I've heard a lot of things, whether it's 30 days, 60, 90 days, if you are slow, it's too late. You already should have been advertising before. And honestly, the difference between my top shops and my shops doing okay, the good months all look the same, right? But the top shops have 12 good months where the good shops have 8 good months, right? Like you're probably not gonna be able to do more in July, August. You're already busy, the guys are already moving. But how do we get ahead of this so the first quarter doesn't kill us every single year? I love that, that's awesome. Google or AI, so if I'm advertising next year, am I doing Google ad spend? Is most of this going to Grok, AI? What about in 5 years? Like, do we see this landscape completely shifting away from mailers, anything, to all AI, or how do you see this working?
Definitely 5 years AI. I think in the next year, because technically today, Google still owns search. They own the market share in search, but that is slowly kind of drifting into AI. So in the next year, I would probably do 50-50, and then over the next 2 to 5 years, I would look into AI. Keep in mind, this has only been around really, I mean, we've been as an industry been using it probably 2.5, 3 years. It's been around total for probably 5. I think Sam Altman launched it in 2022, I believe. It was in November of 2022. So this is relatively new. And then now we're looking at things like, the behaviors and different things that it's able to do, where you can incorporate an image and have it, draw these really enhanced things that we're seeing on Facebook that a lot of shop owners are doing now. So we're still learning it. Right? And with learning, there's always going to be a curve. So I think we're monitoring it as an industry, but I think over the next 2 years, that's going to start to dissipate, and then we're going to start to embrace AI a little bit more than Google.
Yeah, because I think you're right. What it looks like in 5 years, we can't even guess it right now because it doesn't even make sense, right? Like how tailored or what that looks like, it's, just like you're talking about. 6 years ago, this didn't exist.
I remember, just to that point, if I could add that, but 15 years ago, I was doing presentations for DemandForce to shop owners through different chapters around the country. And I remember back then, I used to have to convince shop owners to open up a Facebook page. And I'd get so much pushback. I mean, people wouldn't even look at me as I was presenting.
And now look at these shop owners. We need to get them off.
I think,
yeah.
You can't even pry them off.
Some of them were like, hey, we need to shut this down. Let's take that private.
Right?
This is hurting your marketing.
Right, and what I've always educated them, and you don't have to be an expert at this stuff, and AI included, but just have a basic understanding of it, how it can change your business. That's it. Just surface level, basic understanding of AI, the same way I talked about social media 15 years ago. And I think we'll be in good shape.
Most shops don't have a marketing problem, they have a systems problem. Overdryve.OS was built to solve that. It's not another vendor, it's your AI-powered marketing operating system built specifically for auto repair shop. It predicts slow weeks before they happen, automatically launches revenue-driving campaigns, tracks ROI down to the dollar, and optimizes performance in real time. No guesswork, no wasted ad spend, no hope marketing, just predictable car count, stronger retention, and measurable profitability. Schedule a strategy call today and let's build your growth engine. Visit overdryvemarketing.com. That's OVERDRYVE marketing.com.
If I am a struggling shop owner, I don't have a lot of money, I'm like, Mike, we're just trying to get cars in the door. Let's say, I don't have the money to go hire anyone right now. I got $500, I'm trying to boost this. If you were that shop owner, one-man show trying to get started on this, where would you throw that $500 and what would this look like?
Even taking it one step back is first identify the problem, right? Is it a people problem or is it a process? Or is it the tech stacks you have? So number one is, and that's first and foremost, what is the problem? Why are cars not coming in? If I had a $500 budget for that, I think what I would probably do is I would hire an expert. And I say that, and it's a very challenging question because you're dealing with somebody's livelihood. If they're down their last $500, the last thing that I would want to do is spend their last $500 on something that's not going to help them. But I say hire an expert because the expert's going to, whether it's a coach, whether it's a marketing agency, whatever it is, and then do your due diligence. Interview 2 to 5 companies or individuals that you feel very strongly that's able to help you. The reason why I say that, investing your last $500, is because that expert's gonna give you that strategy to help you bounce back. Yeah. So I would say experts first if you're down to your last $500. Again, it's risky. And again, it comes from a place where I would never want to spend somebody's last $500, but I genuinely believe in that expert advice and somebody that's truly going to identify the hole and then tell me exactly what I need to do to fill that hole. Lastly to that, be scrappy. Go find non-competing businesses that are like coffee shops, hospitals. There's a lot, like largest employers, for example. If you're in Denver, who's my largest employer within a 2-mile radius? Yeah. And then, whether it's a hospital, whether it's a school, whatever it is, PG&E, go there and then try to be part of their work perk program. Okay. Because a lot of these larger companies have these work perk benefits to their employees, right? So do those types of things, but be scrappy. Flyers, all that stuff. Go door to door.
Yeah, belly to belly.
You got to do that.
Yeah. No, I love that idea, and I think that you hit the nail on the head because and so many people back against a wall, they're chucking $500 to their Google ad account and poof, it's gone, right? You're in a competitive market, you do the wrong thing on it, you're never gonna get anything, driving back. But what I really love on that is that you said time out. If you are really this slow and you're really this broke, you're down to the last $500, this is probably not a just direct marketing car count issue. Yeah. There's something bigger going on, right? Wait, why are we going to chuck cars at a dumpster fire here?
Correct.
Let's see what we got going on.
You can back yourself up even further.
Absolutely.
And I sadly over the years I've seen shops do that, it's no fault of their own. They're just trying to do something to try to bounce
Well, a lot
back.
of times they're trying to do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to help out their customers. They're trying to give people a price break, and it's like, you have plenty of customers, right? You're not charging people enough, right? You're trying to take care of them, but you're 40% under market.
Yeah.
If you charge what you're worth and what your customers are really willing to pay, maybe your car count issue goes away.
And that's why, Hunt, I'm part of a lot of forums online, like a lot of us are. I'm inspired by coaches, right? I'm not a coach. I could marketing coach, you can call me, right? But like, I don't coach like a lot of these other companies do. And you see these forums where it's like, 7-10 years ago, I was down to my last $500, and then I met Joe, whoever, and he was able to coach me, and now I've got 4 locations. So that's why I always go with the expert. Yes, it's risky, but at the same time, that expert advice is really gonna maybe shed some light. A light bulb's gonna go off and go, now I get this. And then you're gonna push forward in most cases.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head there, right? It's like 90% of our clients have a coach that they're actively working with, some of them multiple ones.
I've got a coach.
There you go. Everyone needs a coach, right? What is
I've got 2 coaches.
Yeah.
Strengthening, business leadership, and then strength and conditioning.
That is super cool, right?
Yeah.
And everyone can learn something, right?
Yep.
And if you think that you can't learn anything, then that's probably an issue, but love this. This has been incredible. I've learned a ton here. I know everyone has. So if you could leave our listeners with one thing, if you got advice for this year, if you got an outlook for this year, if you got a marketing tip, give them something, and appreciate it.
Don't assume you know the problem. If your car count's dry, if the phone's not ringing, don't just spray and pray. First step, identify what the problem is. Secondly, it always is gonna start with the people. Like Tim Cook from Apple says, people, strategy, execution. It always starts with the people. Overinvest in your people. Create an environment where they want to be there. Because like the old adage is happy workers lead to happy customers lead to successful business. People will change the game, so invest in your people. If you have a problem, identify the problem first before you start to work on all these strategies. Talk to an expert.
So pumped to have you on here. So pumped that you're part of the sponsorship. Just love your mindset here, because this is exactly what we talk about on here, what we talk about Parmelis, right? Like, hey, I need more cars, right? How can you fix something if you don't understand your problem? Yeah. It's the same people saying, I want to make more money, and you don't know how much money you're making right now. Right. So you got the data, you look at this stuff, make an educated decision, and appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah, I appreciate you welcoming me here.
Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed that talk with Mike. I know I did, learned a ton, and really just kind of was a eye-opening experience of what the advertising world looks like now and what it might look like for the future. As always, please share with friends. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. Just want to say thanks again for listening to the Automotive Repair Podcast Network. You can find the rest of the shows on the new Automotive Repair Podcast Network app on your other favorite podcast listening apps. Thanks again for joining me on Business by the Numbers. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you all next week.